When you think about what to do next, don't overplan it. The answer to your next journey is not within you, it's outside. So take that first step, and the next step will reveal itself.
So he spent 2 years at NASA calculating how not to blow up spacecraft. And then he left that to go build a dating app. And then 40 million users and a $258 million exit later, he's now arguing that everything you think you need to build tech companies, engineers, funding, a technical background, that's no longer required. How cool is that? Welcome back to The Root of All Success. I'm your host, the real Jason Duncan. This is episode number 353, and my guest today is Dr. Alex Mehr. He's a former NASA research scientist. He's a serial entrepreneur, $250 million, at least in one exit. And he's a co-founder and CEO of Famous.ai. He co-founded Zoosk, you may have heard that, which grew to over 40 million users and sold for $258 million, $250 million. He then pivoted to rescuing iconic American brands, Pier One, Radio Shack, Dress Barn, and reinventing them for e-commerce. And now he's on a mission to eliminate the last barrier standing between people like you and me, maybe non-technical founders, and their best ideas. So what's that barrier? That's the need for a coder. We don't need that anymore. So Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
This is an honor to have you on the show, man. You're a heavy hitter, dude. You know that, right?
I'm doing my best.
Well, you said that there's a dividing line in entrepreneurship, that like pre-25 and after 25. And I'm not talking about people's age. We're talking about the date, pre-2025 and after 2025. That's a bold line to draw. So I want you to make the case. Why does that year matter so much?
End of 2024 is when AI models got to a point in terms of reasoning that they could actually reason like I want to say an average human. And that happened around December 2024. And then I want to say February 2025, I saw the coding models be able to actually write code with, like, still there's some syntax error here and there, but it was getting to a point where it could spit out a code that actually compiles and run. So the two elements you need to build a software product is like be able to reason what you're building, and two, be able to code it. Both of them got eliminated in the span of about 3-4 months. And I was building AI apps before that. I've been attempting to build the current product. But then once I saw those two, I'm like, aha, I know exactly what to build. And the rest is history.
Okay. I remember being at a mastermind group event in Reno, Nevada in December of 22. That's when ChatGPT dropped, wasn't it? November, December, 20. And I remember we were having dinner at this restaurant, and the guy that was leading the whole event, he was sitting across the table from me, and of course there were a bunch of other people. And he said, "Hey, have you guys heard of this thing called OpenAI and this ChatGPT thing?" And we're like, "No, never heard of it before." And I remember pulling out my phone, and we were all like absolutely blown away. So you're right. I mean, that 25 is when it really started working to the degree that you don't need the coder anymore. So
before that, it was a chatbot mostly. You could chat with it, but it couldn't really reason. It could write code, but the code had a lot of issues. Around end of 2024, early 2025, when we crossed a line, essentially.
So let's talk about your personal story. So you were working at NASA, where you were literally designing risk frameworks for space exploration. Yes. And you left that to co-found a dating app of all things. So what was that decision like? I mean, what did your colleagues think of that?
I still have a lot of friends who are like scientists, essentially. And when I in my bio, I say ex-scientist because they now make fun of me because I'm no longer, they don't consider me a scientist anymore. Last paper I published was 2008, 2009. I'm like outdated. So I lived a different life than most entrepreneurs. Most entrepreneurs, when you talk to them, they had entrepreneurial tendencies and stuff when they were growing up. I wasn't really into it. if I grew up in an academic family, they really wanted me to get a lot of degrees, and I wanted to grow up to become a physicist, scientist, and do all of that. So in 2006, 7, when I worked at NASA, I lived in San Francisco. Through osmosis of living in San Francisco, I kept hearing about Silicon Valley and entrepreneurship and all that. And I decided to try my hand in entrepreneurship. And it's like crossing the Rubicon. So going from a scientist to, gets a paycheck, I never had to worry about, meeting the payroll requirements. When I crossed the Rubicon and became an entrepreneur, there are a lot of positives and negatives. In fact, if I go back in time, I may never become an entrepreneur, to be honest. But it was interesting, and I tried it, and I never went back.
So Zoosk wasn't the first dating app, and it certainly wasn't the biggest. It wasn't the most famous, but it still grew to 40 million users and sold for 258 million bucks. What did Zoosk do that the others around it didn't do?
So actually, we were one of the first movers in online dating apps. So Apple App Store didn't even open until March or April of 2008. And I started the company that became Zoosk as an app studio in 2007. It was so early in the app movement that when I told people we build apps, they thought I was referring to appetizers. People did not know the term apps. We even internally referred to them as widgets. The term app was not popular yet. So we didn't start as an online dating. We started as an app studio. I had this idea that services are going to be appified, and we're not going to do .com anymore. We're going to go to do apps. And this is, again, before iPhone App Store. So it was like we were launching MySpace widgets, okay? Believe it or not. So we started building apps or widgets back in the days. And I had hits and I had misses. We launched quiz widgets. We launched polling widgets. In fact, I started the company as a polling company. It was called Pollection when I started it. And then it was like getting some traction, but it wasn't quite hitting it. I had some hits, but they were small. And then December 2007 is when, at the time, it was Match.com and eHarmony were the big players in the space. I said, what if we launch a dating widget? And then we launched it. It wasn't called Zoosk. It got traction. And then at that point, it got traction more than anything else. I said, okay, let's double down on this. We doubled down on it. We renamed it to Zoosk. We were one of the first movers in the dating app space. Then iPhone opened its app store in 2008, a few months later. And we launched in the app store. And we were one of the first movers. We were the largest, in fact, all the way to 2012, 13. And we were the number one online dating app. We just killed every other project and focused on online dating apps. So in a way, it was like kind of random exploration. We found something and then we doubled down on it and blew it up.
So you eventually sold Zoosk for $250 million, and a lot of founders would say, "That's the finish line, man. I'm done." So what did you feel when that actually happened, and then what surprised you most about life on the other side of that big exit?
I didn't like it. In fact, in a way, I was opposed to selling the company. And it's hard for me to explain, but selling a company, to me, it felt like I entered an abyss. Like I didn't know what to do. And so it wasn't really like, if you think I was like happy and jumping for joy, that wasn't the case at all. It was the opposite. And I tell you guys this, my dad didn't retire all the way to the final days of his life. He pretty much died with his boots on, and I plan to do the same. So I want to die with my boots on. It's just I don't like the idea of, I don't even know what to do. Yeah. If I'm not working. So
so after Zoosk, you went in a completely different direction. You started buying distressed retail brands and relaunching them online, like Pier One, Radio Shack, Dress Barn. That's a strange portfolio for a tech founder. So What made you believe that there was something worth saving in those brands?
I mean, it was an interesting thesis. I get excited about new ideas. And the thesis was that these brands have a lot of punching power because I mean, let me give you an example. So if you start a brand from scratch, like I did at Zoosk, and now I'm doing it in Famous Labs. There are positives and negatives. The positive is you can shape it the way you want to. Okay. The negative is you have nothing. So you have to build a brand little by little, step by step. So the thought there was you kind of shortcut the building process, and you start with a brand that already has a large amount of brand awareness. Okay, so that was a thesis.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm doing now is, and I like the thesis. It is applicable probably to a lot of business, a lot of industries, retail, things that are established. Maybe in online dating that would have been a good idea too. It's just like I was starting and I didn't have the ability to acquire an existing brand. And I mean, I always say, if you have the opportunity to purchase a brand or to buy a brand in a given industry that is established, take it. But there's positives and negatives. The negative is that it comes with a pre-made uh, uh, notion of what that brand is. But in what I'm doing right now, there is no existing brand. So in AI, it is you have to build from scratch, and it turns out I like that better, even though you have to build from scratch. You can shape it the way you want it. So that's a big difference. So there are positives and negatives. Let me put it
Yeah.
that way. Yeah.
Well, so what did you end up doing with those brands, Pier One and Radio Shack and
The
Pinterest?
company got structured, it restructured, and it is running under new management now.
And are you still involved in the ownership?
No,
No,
no.
you
Yeah,
exited that out.
yeah.
Okay. So, what did that particular chapter of your life teach you about the value of a brand? I mean, is it just like what you said? It's like it's
Very
just easy.
valuable,
Yeah. So it's easier
very
to
valuable.
build. I mean, it's easier to rebuild than to build from scratch. I think you said that. But what's the value of a brand?
If I want to describe it in one word, it is trust.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, so that's the value of the brand. When you're starting from scratch, you're building that from scratch. Again, the positive is you're 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 shaping it the way you want it. Okay. Now, in so I mean, it's a complex question because I can argue it in both ways. I think a lot of people think of their brand as, okay, this brand is defines what the product is or tells the user what the service is in like just one word. I don't think of it that way. Like Apple is not that. Apple is multiple products. Google is not that. It is Google has a lot of products. It is, if you think about it deeply, when you hear the word Google, you have a preconceived notion of what that is. It is a very high tech product that is not necessarily the best UI, but it's reliable and it does the job. When you think the brand Apple, you think, creative design. Okay. So that takes a lifetime to build. And it's once you've built it, it is so valuable that you have to protect it. Okay. And when you're building a company from scratch, like we are doing now, I care a lot about what the brand looks like, and does it live up to what I imagine the brand would do? In our case, Products that we build are to enable entrepreneurs to turn their ideas into actual products that actually works. And the brand concept to me is enabling. I think of it as David's slingshot. Like the ability, it's like I think of our products as a tool that gives asymmetric advantage to the little guy. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And that is what I'm trying to establish with our products. And everything we do is about that. Enabling, give the little guy David's slingshot. That's sort of like what I'm building around. I always have this idea in my head about what the brand is and what it should do. And that's very important to me.
All right, so let's talk about famous.ai. So I'm on the website right now. So if you listeners can, if you can multitask and do that, I would encourage you to go take a look at it. So it says idea to app instantly, powered by synthetic intelligence. And so there's a cursor box there that says, a prompt box says, I want to build, and then you just fill in what you want to build. So walk us through what the possibilities are that we could do with this.
Yeah. So I try to build products that sort of draw on my own personal experience. Yeah. So when I started the app studio that became Zoosk, in order to execute the ideas, I cashed out my 401k and paid all the penalties to start it. Then I raised angel investor money and then raised venture capital. I lived in San Francisco. I hired engineers. We had an office. It was like a full-on production, okay? And then the first idea didn't work, okay? It worked a little bit, but not really. So we had to launch widget after widget, app after app, until we hit one that worked. And that took a long time. So what did I learn from that experience? Winning comes not from clarity of your idea. You never have the right idea in the first shot, okay? So you have to try multiple times. 2, you have to be able to execute quickly, rapidly, until you hit. It's essentially swings of the bat. You have to be able to swing multiple times. So that was not possible without capital and engineering team and all that. Nowadays, with our tools, essentially what I'm doing, I'm building the tools that makes what I went through possible to more people. Okay? So it's essentially, in a way, it's very personal to me because I went through the same process, but I didn't have the tools of today. And I put myself in my own shoes back in the days. I'm like, can I build a tool using today's technology that enables someone like me to do what I did with much less resources and engineers and all that? So that's sort of the idea. Does that make sense? So here on Famous AI, you can essentially describe the idea and have AI build it, launch the front end, meaning the website or web app or the mobile app, and the back end, and the entire wiring all the way to payment. The whole thing, essentially by just describing it in English, which allows you to build your idea into an app or a website rapidly and with little resources.
So when you say, so I'm looking at the website right now. So if I said I wanted to build an app for my mastermind, so I run a mastermind for entrepreneurs exiting their businesses. It's called the Exeter Club. So if I said I want an app where members can communicate with one another, we can drop videos, kind of like a portal, a member portal. Could it actually produce the full thing ready to go in Android and iOS? I mean, really?
Yeah, it's like we have essentially, there's a toggle at the bottom. It says, is it a web app or a mobile app? I recommend starting with a web app first because you can work the kinks as a web app. With iOS and Android, you have to iterate with the store. And that makes the process much slower. So you can do either one though. And yes, the answer is yes. It not only builds it, it creates login, it creates a backend database so users can sign up, log in. Essentially that part you don't even have to worry about. Okay. It sends user validation email to people. It creates the portal. You can iterate back and forth with it in English. You can drop in your logo and say, use this logo. I don't like this part, change this part. I don't like that part, change that part. So it's able to do it.
And so the pricing, I'm looking at the pricing models. I mean, there's a huge, huge array from
Yeah,
free to like 8 grand a month. You know, so
right.
that it's like what? So what's the difference? I mean, what are you getting differential between those price points?
It's amount of credit. So the way AI works is the AI models in general are going into credit-based systems or token-based systems. So essentially, like a simple thing, it's a landing page or something. You can do it with one prompt. That is not going to cost a lot of credits. You can go on a pay-as-you-go basis, or you can subscribe to higher packages where you get a lot of credits and you can build really complex products using that. So it's all about how much AI you use. Does it make
Yeah.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah. So if I wanted to build that app, just kind of put this into perspective. If I
Yeah.
wanted to build that app, I want to move off of a platform like we had that portal in Kajabi. We've been looking at moving it to another platform. We've looked at Teachable and Circle and GHL and all the different platforms to move that into. That they just have monthly fees that you drop it in there, and you have to use their user interface, their thing. How different would it be if I said, you know what, we're going to build it here?
Yeah. I mean, to build it, I mean, again, depends on the complexity, but
Sure.
what you're describing is going to be like a few $100 essentially of token
Wow.
usage. Yeah.
All right. Well, Madeline, my assistant, is listening to this. She's the producer. Like, we've been looking at this. We've been sitting through these meetings with all these other companies looking at portals, and we need to do this. So
Yes.
I'm glad we're interviewing you today, Alex. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. So speed is something you talk about a lot. That speed is your competitive advantage, but speed without direction is chaos. So where do you believe is the line between moving fast and moving recklessly?
Great question. Moving fast to me means testing your ideas in quick succession without betting the farm on a single idea. Okay, so that's what it means to me. In other words, line up your ideas and execute them one by one, and there's an art of knowing whether an idea is worth pursuing further or not. There's a little bit of science. I can give you some hints on how to think about that based on my experience, but the rules are not hard and fast. There's an art there. So, but the point is, you don't want to get stuck on a single idea that the market repeatedly tells you is not worth it. Okay, it's not working. And you don't want to move too fast from an idea to the next if you have not fully tested the idea. Does that make sense? So it's like two sides of it.
Yeah.
So I have few things that work, rules, heuristics, if you want to call it, that work in certain scenarios. And one of them is I try to get 50 signups or purchases for an idea. And if I can't get that relatively quickly, I mean, again, depends on the product. Like if you're launching an automobile, it's like very different. But for like most web products and websites and concepts, it is like, let me get 50 customers. And once you hit the 50 customers, if you can't get it, forget about it. If you can't get your 50 customers, that's when you stop and evaluate. Okay, so how much did it cost me to get the first 50 clients? Are they sticking? What do I estimate their lifetime value to be? And do like back of the envelope math, and then do a gut check with yourself too. With yourself, like I really care about what my gut is telling me. It's like, okay, am I onto something? Is it worth my life focusing on this or not? Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good checkpoint. So I mean, again, oversimplifying a little bit, but I want to say 50 clients is where you stop and evaluate.
All right, we're going to take a quick pause before we get back to our conversation with Alex. If you are a business owner who's ever wondered what it would actually take to step back from the day-to-day or even eventually sell your company, I have made a short free video that you need to watch. It's only 6 minutes long. I'll walk you through the one question every founder needs to answer honestly and what to do about it. If you want to look at this, go to whattofixbeforeyouexit.com. That's whattofixbeforeyouexit.com. Now, let's have a word from today's sponsor. Our episode sponsor for today is the company Dubb. That's spelled D-U-B-B. I've been using Dubb personally since 2018, nearly every single day. And if you want to stand out in a crowded inbox, Dubb lets you record and send personalized video messages with clickable CTAs right there in the video. Your prospects can book calls with you, they can reply, they can take a next step without ever leaving the video. And you get real-time analytics so you know exactly when your video was watched and what they did next. If you want to try it out and get a free use and discount on the first couple months, go over to therealjasonduncan.com/Dubb. That's D-U-B-B. Therealjasonduncan.com/Dubb to get started. Now, let's get back to Alex. Let's talk about AI. Do you think Famous.ai is going to be as a big a deal as Zoosk was for you?
Yeah, I think it's, and I can explain why. Online dating industry, if people don't believe me when I say this, it's actually a relatively small industry. It's at the time it was about 4 billion total addressable market globally. It's probably a little bit bigger now, but in general, it's not that big of a market. Also, I think the problem we are solving, and that's the core of the issue. The problem we are solving with our products is a much more impactful problem. Harder to solve, but much more impactful. And end of the day, things go back to basics. How many people have the problem you're solving, and how much value it is to them? Okay? So that's why healthcare is the largest industry, because everybody cares about, their health, and it's very important to them once they get sick. So that's why it's a huge, and if you can solve that, that's why pharma companies, biotech companies are so large. And I think, I want to emphasize one thing. If you're building a company, if you're just optimizing for, I want to go after a big industry or whatever, you're probably not thinking about it right. Because end of the day, what matters is, are you passionate about the problem? One, are you a subject matter expert in it? Is it in your core of zone of competency? And three, how many people have that problem, and is your solution any good? Okay. So if you check those boxes, you end up with a successful company, regardless of market size. In this particular case, quick confession, I did not know much about online dating going into it. I just randomly got to it. And I don't want to say I was a subject matter expert in it. I became a subject matter expert, but it wasn't like a topic I was actively thinking about. It was just a coincidence that I stepped into it. With this company, I'm actually very passionate and very familiar with what I'm doing. Therefore, I feel it's going to be a much bigger hit. So,
all right. Well, let me ask you this. You've been very successful in your life. You've done a lot of cool things. But what's something that you used to believe that you don't believe anymore?
Before I became an entrepreneur, I really thought going into business is about making money. And I actually realized I don't care about it that much at all. In fact, I don't care about it. It's like the last thing I think about, believe it or not. Sounds a little, people might roll their eyes, but I don't care. It's the truth. I think fulfillment doesn't come from financial success. Now, financial success enables you to solve important big problem that impacts a lot of people. So indirectly is satisfying, but directly it leaves you empty. And in fact, if you're pursuing financial success as your main goal, the likelihood of you winning is lower. Okay. So it's like, it's what you chase runs away from you. Essentially, if you chase financial success as an entrepreneur, it runs away from you. So at this point in my life, that's what I used to think though, before I became an entrepreneur. I was like, okay, it's like, science doesn't pay, yeah, but entrepreneurship does, and it turns out that I want to say as a scientist, I had a very fulfilling life. I just didn't appreciate it at the time as much. So now in this new phase of my life, I try to do things that actually leaves me like essentially with emotional and I don't want to say spiritual, but from a purpose part of life, it is it is fulfilling. I can see the face of my clients being satisfied and happy and surprised in a positive way with what our product can generate for them, and that's really what drives me. Does it make sense? So it's a kind of a mind shift.
Yeah. So how do you define the word success? What does that mean to you, Alex?
It is knowing the battles I fight, seeing the battles that I fight, and there are a lot of them. Anybody who's been an entrepreneur knows it. Translate into a satisfied customer, and that is by far the most rewarding thing you can do. You can see as an entrepreneur. So to me, success is really satisfied customer. It's like very simply put.
Well, based on that definition, do you consider yourself to be successful?
Yes, but not enough. So we are delivering a lot of good work for people. I think there are a lot of challenges, engineering challenges. Some of it is just a matter of technology maturing, and some of it is us harnessing the technology more, and some of it is training people to be able to use technology more. The latter is actually the most challenging. So it's essentially, I think of it as work in progress. But yes, so far it's been great.
All right, Alex, we're about to finish up our conversation today. So I've got some rapid fire questions that I want to ask you. I have 4 of them. Are you ready?
Yes, let's go.
All right. The NASA project that you're most proud of, tell me about it in 1 sentence.
Risk modeling and risk reduction for space missions.
All right. The second one, the brand that you acquired that surprised you the most once you got inside it.
The first brand, Dress Barn.
All right. And I got to ask a follow-up question. What was it that surprised you inside there?
How low tech the company was. Surprisingly so. To give you an example, they printed their Facebook ads and looked at them on a piece of paper, spread on. It's like I can never explain that to marketers.
Hey, print that website out and bring it over here.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Third one. One tool, other than your own, of course, one tool that every non-technical founder should be using right now.
So I want to plug in our own product, but but in general, 1 second, let me think on that. Using AI to analyze your financial and customer data, meaning download your customer data, your bank statements, your Stripe data, drop it in AI, and ask questions in English from AI.
I like it. Last one. If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice the day that you left NASA, what would it be?
Go back to academia and research. Stay there is the best life.
Oh my gosh, you'd have missed out on a few $100 million. I don't know about that. But you don't care about money. And
I,
that's
I,
admirable.
I don't, and I loved my life. If I could go back in it, I would have.
Well, Alex, your website is famous.ai. So it's famous.ai. So I'm going to go check that out. Madeline and I are going to go look at that for sure. You can be found on Instagram at Dr. Alex, spell out the word doctor. And then Facebook, it's real Dr. Mehr. And that's DRMEHR. Last name MEHR. Alex, what are your final thoughts? I'm going to give you the final word for today's show.
When you think about what to do next, don't overplan it. The answer to your next journey is not within you, it's outside. So take that first step, and the next step will reveal itself.
Alex, thanks for being on the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
Well, there you have it. A very successful entrepreneur sharing his story about how he left NASA to go start up Zoosk, a dating app, selling it for $250 million, and buying brands that we've all probably heard of, Dress Barn and Pier One and Radio Shack, and being surprised at how low tech they are and behind the scenes. And now he's building famous.ai, where you don't have to be a coder. You can go in and build a web app. You can build a phone app right there for just a few $100. I can't wait to get in there and start playing around with it. So go check out Alex's website at famous.ai and report back and let me know. Let me know how that's going. How did that work out? And if you do reach out to Alex, please let him know you heard him on The Root of All Success with me, your host, the real Jason Duncan. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you tune in again next time when I talk with yet another very successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. Until then, as always, I am the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.